me.
Welcome to the Senior Rehab Podcast.
The podcast for rehab clinicians that want to better serve older adults. Shorts. This is Senior Rehab Shorts, the evidence-based segment for geriatric rehab clinicians, bringing you relevant and applicable content to better serve your patients, regardless of your setting. And now your host, Joe Daniels.
What is up, Senior Rehab Project? As you may have already noticed, this is not the one and only Dustin Jones. My name is Joe Daniels, and I'm your new host for the Shorts segment of this amazing podcast series. I'm currently a third-year student out of NOVA Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and will be graduating this coming May, so super exciting stuff. I'm currently interviewing for geriatric residency positions, so if any of you have any questions or are interested in residency, whether that be pediatrics or neuro or outpatient, please don't hesitate to contact me. And you can do that through Facebook at Joe Daniels. You can find me on Twitter at jdaniels_SPT. And you can also email me at jd2012@nova.edu. Or if you absolutely must, you can give me a call on my cell phone. It's 217-714-4673. Can't promise I'll always get back to you on the cell phone, but I will do my very best. So now that we have introductions out of the way, I'd like to give a massive shout out to our gracious leader, the one and only Dustin Jones, for allowing me to really take the reins with this segment and kind of make it into my own thing. So what I've decided to do is continue to produce a short segment per week, but to make this into more of an evidence-based weekly segment where I review, or the evidence-based segment will be a bi-weekly segment where I review the literature as it relates to geriatric rehab, and then basically summarize the evidence each week in an easily digestible format that I think will be immediately beneficial to you all as clinicians practicing with this population in terms of the older adult on a daily basis. So if you have particular requests with regards to content, or if there's something you would like to see more of as far as research goes, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll definitely see what I can find for you guys. So between these bi-weekly evidence-based segments, I'll be reading recent popular articles as they relate to geriatric PT. So again, if anyone has any suggestions that they feel would benefit the group, feel free to share. So these popular articles will be similar to what Dustin was producing before. So here's how I'm going to get this thing kicked off, since this is strictly an introductory episode. The one and only Jamie Lowy, who you can find on the Senior Rehab Project Facebook group, wrote a fantastic article about mediocrity in clinical practice that I am so excited to share with you all. I think it's a great opener episode to really set the tone for the rest of the series, to get folks to continually reflect and to share what we all know needs to be the standard of rehab for the geriatric patients that we work with each and every day. So this is an email from Jamie to Dustin back in early February expressing his concerns over subpar clinical practice. And it says, "Hi Dustin. A few months back, seems like weeks, I indicated I was working on a piece that highlighted my concern over mediocre clinical practice. Work and life did a nice job putting up some distractions, but I finally set aside some time to finish up my little rant. I'm not sure if it's shorts worthy, but have a look and tell me what you think. Best, Jamie." Well, Jamie, today's your lucky day, my friend. I really enjoyed reading your rant, and I'm going to enjoy more so putting it out there for all our listeners to have a listen to. So without further ado, here's the article. So it starts off like this. Disclaimer: my hope is that I offend a few of you, get some of you to think differently, and perhaps influence others to jump on this bandwagon and help reshape the direction of our profession. A few months back, I posted on Twitter one of my perspectives related to some earlier conversations with fellow PTs. Tip the hat to Todd Davenport, Sarah Haig, Karen Litzy, Sandy Hilton, Dustin Jones, Jason Falvey, Richard Severin, and Jerry Durham for keeping the conversation going. What I posted was, the bane of the PT profession is not the healthcare system, but mediocrity. What do I mean by mediocrity? Quite simply that we've traded the aspects of providing meaningful treatments to our patients in favor of being viewed as good employees. A show of hands. How many of you listening right now can say that in your current work situation, you are not judged by productivity metrics? There may be a few of you with your hands in the air, and I imagine that you're the ones that have already started a journey on an alternate pathway. You might be the one taking a leap of faith and starting a cash-based business freed up from bonds or third-party payers, or perhaps you work on a per diem basis in which you see a few patients here and there, perhaps for a couple of different skilled nursing facilities or home health agencies. But since you are not a benefited employee, you may think you're exempt from the influence of productivity metrics. Well, think again. As rehab director for one of the larger national home health agencies, I can tell you we monitor that very closely. If full-time clinicians are slow, we don't give you work. However, if you're a real hustler, we notice and look to give you more work, since you're such a productive workhorse. So for a manager, with budget goals based on how many new patients I can squeeze my field clinicians to bang out in a week or a month, we judge you primarily on your productivity. By now, you may be asking yourself, so what? That just means I'm a good employee, right? Yes, it does. Congratulations, you're on the bus. The bus to Mediocreville. Think about it. If your reward for being a good employee based on your metrics is a better paycheck, what's your real motivation for showing up to work every day? Is it really the patient? Or is it now about having a job that pays the bills, the student loans, the vacations, and the new car? Before I digress along this pathway, I want to give you a better example of what I mean. As a manager, I used to supervise a PT by the name of, let's just call him Joe. Thanks for that one, Jamie. Now, Joe is a good guy. He's friendly and respectful to his coworkers and his patients. He gets his schedule in the morning, gets everyone set up, and then goes about his day. Moreover, Joe is a whiz on the EMR system and completes all his documentation either during the visit itself or by the end of the day. Joe's a very good employee. One thing that does not stand out so much is that Joe's patients, while they do seem to get better, all seem to get similar treatment plans with similar interventions and goals, and similar ordered number of visits. Another thing that stands out is that while most of Joe's patients do make some improvements, they're usually just enough to advance to the next level of function on our OASIS data sets at discharge. So the outcomes also seem to show that Joe is doing good clinical work. Patient surveys likewise describe Joe as respectful, polite, and generally a nice guy. So why am I being so judgmental towards Joe? Because more than any other clinician, his patients seem to also come back on service a month or two later, or they end up returning to the hospital not long after services were initiated. Now we know that patients with chronic disease are a complicated group of folks to manage. It's highly probable that some of the patients that Joe is seeing are very fragile and may have things or multiple things going on at once. That basically a hospital readmission is inevitable. But I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about the ones that are high risk for injury due to falls or perhaps pressure sores from just not moving enough. These folks get really basic exercises and interventions because perhaps Joe doesn't think they can tolerate more, or because Joe is so intent on getting all his documentation done in a timely manner, he does not take the time to fully assess all the patient's potential risk factors. He's choosing productivity and keeping the bosses happy and not thinking about what's really best for the patient. This is the mediocrity that I'm writing about. And I know that there are many of you out there who work like Joe. And I'm telling you now, stop killing our profession and stop hurting your patients. So now that I've come off my soapbox for a moment, what's my solution? It's easy to talk about change and not do anything else other than go on social media rants. First, be realistic about your own expectations for change. When you ask your patients to change a lifestyle habit, such as sitting in the recliner all day, do you have them walking 2 to 3 miles that first session, or set reasonable goals for them to accomplish and build on over time? Start with what's in your immediate control. You can choose to spend a few minutes of time with your patient in order to establish goals that are important to them, and use your assessment tools to figure out the best pathway to do so. Don't just use a standardized test like the TUG, the DGI, or the short physical performance battery and have the goal to simply increase that score. It would be good to look at the standardized test to find out how much progress indicates clinical significance. Consider why that test is relevant to your patient in terms of function and safety. Your patient has issues with incontinence at nighttime because they cannot ambulate to the restroom quickly enough. Why not use the results of your tug as the basis to work on improving a sit-to-stand transfer, gait speed, and turning safely in order to satisfy the patient's need to get to the bathroom without having an accident or falling because he or she was in such a rush? It's really that simple. My other suggestion is to take a moment to consider this question. What would your PT student self think of you today just settling for good enough? When you saw the world through those eager eyes, did you envision yourself just doing enough to get by? Or did you have visions of taking your patients further and further than they themselves could have ever thought possible? And when did you sell or trade your ideals for mediocrity? Was it to meet the ever-growing demands for productivity or even dealing with empathy burnout? The thing of it is, we all may be susceptible to stress in the mental, emotional, and physical wear of taking care of people who are recovering from illness and injury. Perhaps it's time for a change of work setting, like outpatient to home health, or to find a clinical mentor. Some may be folks on social media, who can help you develop some strategies to break out of this mediocre practice habits and be the PT or PTA that your patients deserve. Keep reading the research and stay skeptical of any therapy intervention or system that promises to fix all of your patients. And perhaps most importantly, and I owe this bit of wisdom to the aforementioned Sarah Haig, be focused on the things that we can change, not the things that we can't. You're not going to cure your patient's Parkinson's, but you can make them move better, feel better, and live better. Think about that, and get yourself back on the pathway that leads away from Mediocreville, not the one that leads to it. And Jamie Lowy drops the mic. In all seriousness, that article carries a phenomenal message and one that we all need to be thinking about every day and continually reassessing what we're giving to our patients and how much of what we know and what we can truly implement with these folks on a daily basis are we really putting out into the universe. So with that said, next week, I am breaking down an article out of the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy that's titled Evidence-Based Exercise Prescription for Balance and Falls Prevention, a current review of the literature. So my goal with these evidence-based segments is to hopefully arm you all with some of the knowledge that you can take back to your patients and continue to make a difference for the better. For those of you that don't have time to sit down and go through the literature online or run through the textbooks, I'm hoping this will be something that is concise and compact and pertinent that you all can take right out to the clinic and use on a daily basis. If someone approaches you and says, hey, what's the evidence for that? You can say, boom, here's a little something that I've read or heard. So again, if you have any questions at all, you know where to find me on Facebook, Twitter, my cell phone, email, whatever it may be. But until next week, stay funky, my friends.
Hit me. Thank you for listening to the Senior Rehab Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you should hop on over to seniorrehabproject.com to find more helpful content. You can also find out how you can join the team and be a part of the private Facebook group, the monthly mastermind meetup, and have a say in the content and direction of this podcast. Once again, that's seniorrehabproject.com. I appreciate you, and I'll talk with you soon. But in the meantime, do not forget to stay funky.